Happy Tuesday to everybody. A little bit of a different setting today for our daily devotion. Let's jump in. I was reading in John the end of chapter 7, the beginning of chapter 8, and there's something that really stood out to me that I wanted to share with you guys this morning. And I would encourage you, read it for yourself. But it is this passage where the Pharisees are still trying to catch Jesus, right? They're still trying to find moments where they can catch him doing something wrong. And the end of chapter 7, I love this passage where the Pharisees have sent guards out to go get him. And when they come back, they don't have him. And they're like, where is he? Why don't you have him? And they're like, you don't understand. When he teaches, there's something about his teaching that just transformed us. It changed us. And they were like, almost became this mob mentality where it was like, you've been tricked by him, you've been deceived by him. But the reality is that what drew the men in to be able to say, we can't capture him, there's nothing he's saying that we can hold against him, is that he taught with love rather than condemnation. We saw all throughout with the Pharisees, they were so condemning. It was all about condemnation. And yet every time Jesus taught, he taught from the angle and the aspect of love, the love of the Father. And then we jump into 8, and we approach a topic that's still today, even 2,000 plus years later, it is still a hot topic, and it's sexual sin. There's this question that creates such fear and judgment amongst the Christians and those who would not call themselves Christians. And this question would be, is sex outside of marriage acceptable, or is it sinful? See, that's the question. So you can ask the first part, but then you have to ask the second part. If you're going to walk in love rather than condemnation, you have to understand the difference between the two. Because the third question is if we understand what is and isn't acceptable, if we understand what is and isn't sin, then what is our attitude towards those who are guilty of sin, especially sexual sin? That's something that is so out there. It's so like in front of people. There's a lot of sin that is hidden sin. And in fact, is Jesus in chapter 8, that's what he's addressing here. And imagine how this woman must have felt being thrust in front of everybody, right? I mean, she had to have been feeling desperate, defeated. She was brought there by herself. The guy wasn't brought as well. She had to be feeling guilt and shame. And the reality, something you and I probably have never felt when it comes to sin, is fear of death. Literally, she had death at her door. And what I love about this passage is Jesus doesn't condone the sin, but he also doesn't condemn her. He doesn't condone, he doesn't say it's okay, but he doesn't condemn her. How often are we guilty of our own sins in our own hearts, and we begin to condemn and criticize others because of that? I would say that more than likely, guilt would have been a huge emotion that she would have been feeling at this moment. Jesus, full of his wisdom and grace, this is what he does. He asks a question. He poses to them. He says, if you are without sin, cast the stone. We know this. We say it. We use it all the time. But that when he says, if you are without sin, cast the first stone, what he's actually saying is that sin is not, are you actually operating in a sin? But that word sin has to do with, if you have yet yourself never had a desire, if you've never desired to be sinful, then go ahead. And the beauty of it is that none could throw the stone. He didn't condemn, he didn't condone, but he brought truth. Jesus always brings truth to the situation. He brought truth, and then they all dropped their stones and they left. And as they left, he then is able to say, where are your accusers? Because what they understood about the law was is if there was at least two that could still stand the accusation, she then would be put to death. When no one was left, he then said, I cannot condemn you either. But he also couldn't condone it. And he said to her, most powerful words, go and sin no more. Jesus said those words, saying to us, we can operate a sinless life, but it means we have to really, really, really focus and work on some things. So I just want to encourage you as we go about today, can you find yourself able to love people rather than condemn them? That's what the Lord has called us to do.